The debt must be paid in the same coin. Commander Eva Rostova stood on the command deck of the UNS Reckoning. The ship was a statement, a 3-kilometer spear of polished human law aimed at the heart of the Kepler-186 system. Below, the blue-green marble of Kepler-186f, christened Sanctuary, hung in the void. It was supposed to be a triumph of human expansion, a new home for 2 million souls. Instead, it was a legal cage, and Rostova had been sent to rattle its bars. Her mandate was clear, not one of conquest, but of clarification. Within 300 words of her first log entry, she had already invoked the preliminary articles for a public inquiry. The air on the bridge was cold, smelling of ozone and filtered patience. "Status Magister," she said, her voice a low instrument of command. Her gaze was fixed on the alien vessel parked in high orbit, a Kith Regency Auditor-class ship shaped like a gilded abacus. Holographic light coalesced into the form of a robed scholar, the ship's AI Magister. Its form was a courtesy. Its true being was woven into every conduit of the Reckoning. The Kith vessel maintains its station commander. They are broadcasting their legal framework on all public channels. They call it the Gratitude Collar. Rostova's jaw tightened. Gratitude. A noble concept twisted into a shackle. They arrived before us, stabilized the colony's failing biosphere converters, and are now charging a tithe for the service, a debt for the very air the colonists breathe. Lieutenant Eris Thorne, her tactical officer, stepped beside her. His face was a mask of professional calm, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the rail. "It's extortion, Commander. They're claiming 80% of the colony's energy production and resource output as interest on their unsolicited aid. They did not offer a hand. They presented a bill. The law is specific," Rostova countered, her eyes never leaving the view screen. "Unsolicited aid in a crisis scenario can be compensated, but the terms must be proportional. What the Kith are doing is predation, dressed in the robes of jurisprudence." She turned to her communications officer. "Ensign Vance, open a channel to the Archon of that vessel. Formal introduction. Let them know the auditors have arrived." The channel chimed, and a new face appeared on the main screen. It was a Kith humanoid, but unnervingly symmetrical, with skin like polished marble, and eyes that seemed to absorb light. It wore ornate robes that shimmered with what looked like embedded legal codices. "I am Archon Valerius." The being said, its voice smooth as poured oil. "You are the human vessel Reckoning. We were informed of your imminent arrival. You are here to witness our benevolent stewardship." "I am Commander Eva Rostova," she replied, her tone perfectly flat. "We are here to audit the terms of that stewardship, under the Inter-System Accord Article, Proportionality and Crisis Aid." A thin smile touched the Archon's lips. "Ah, the ledgers. We welcome your scrutiny. Our calculations are precise. Our claim is just. The colony at Sanctuary owes a debt of gratitude, and we are merely here to ensure it is dutifully paid." Their justice was a mathematics of misery. Rostova felt a cold anger coil in her gut, but her expression remained serene. This was not a battle to be fought with cannons, but with clauses. "Archon, we will require full access to the colony's output logs and your own service records. We will conduct a full public inquiry to determine the proportionality of your claim." The Archon's smile did not waver. "Of course, we have nothing to hide. Transparency is the foundation of trust. We will transmit our ledgers. You will find they are immaculate." The channel closed, leaving Rostova alone with the chilling confidence of her adversary. She turned to her crew. "Magister, begin a full-spectrum analysis of their transmission. Look for what isn't there." Eris, I want a security team ready to accompany me to the surface. Ensign Vance monitor all colonial comms traffic. I want to know what the people are saying." She paused, her gaze sweeping over her bridge officers. "The Kith believe law is a weapon to enforce compliance. We are here to remind them it is a shield to protect the vulnerable." A vignette from the surface flickered onto a side display, a public broadcast intercepted from Sanctuary's local net. A woman, her face smudged with dirt and creased with worry, stood before a silent power distribution hub. "They shut it down again," she said to a small crowd. The mid-district atmospheric scrubbers said our energy tithe was a fraction of a percentage point short for the cycle. "My son's respirator needs a charge. He can't." Her voice broke a small, desperate sound in the vast legal silence imposed from orbit. Rostova watched her resolve hardening into something sharp and dangerous. This was the cost the Archon's immaculate ledgers failed to show. This was the interest paid in human suffering. A just debt is repaid. An unjust one is returned. Magister's voice cut through the tension. "Commander, I have completed the preliminary analysis of the Kith ledgers. They are, as the Archon stated, mathematically perfect. Every joule of energy they expended is accounted for. Every resource they provided is logged with market rate valuations. Then they are legally airtight." Aris said, his voice tight with frustration. No, Rostova countered, a new light in her eyes. "They are merely a record of their costs. They have failed to account for the costs they have inflicted. That is where we will find our leverage. That is the debt they will be made to answer for." She walked toward the turbolift. "Lieutenant Thorne, you have the bridge. I'm going to the surface. It's time we started our own ledger." The doors hissed shut, leaving the command staff in a silence charged with a new defiant purpose. The game was not about their numbers. It was about to be about ours. The truth has its own gravity. The shuttle descended through Sanctuary's atmosphere, a sky the color of a faded sapphire. Below, the cityscape of Promise Harbor spread out, a testament to human ambition. But as they drew closer, the cracks in the facade became visible. Lights flickered erratically. Sections of the city were dark, shrouded in an unnatural twilight. The Kith's gratitude tax was a slow, creeping strangulation. Rostova stood by the viewport, her reflection a ghost against the sprawling city. Beside her, Lieutenant Thorne scanned the landing zone data. "Governor's office has cleared us for approach," he reported. "They sound worn out." "Oppression is exhausting," Rostova said quietly. "It's designed to be. It grinds down the will to resist until compliance seems like the path of least resistance." They landed on a pad atop the Colonial Administration Tower. The air that met them was thin with a metallic tang that spoke of overstressed life support. Governor Jorik, a man who looked 10 years older than his service record indicated, greeted them with a handshake that lacked strength. His eyes were shadowed with defeat. "Commander Rostova, welcome to Sanctuary," he said, his voice raspy. "What's left of it?" Governor Rostova acknowledged with a respectful nod. "We are here to help you contest the Kith's claim." Jorik led them through corridors where the lights were dimmed to preserve power. Staff moved with a lethargic slowness. "Contest it," he scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "They have us in a legal stranglehold. They saved us, yes. Our terraforming cascade failed. The biosphere was collapsing. They arrived, stabilized it in 3 cycles. Now they own us. Every watt of power, every liter of water is tallied on their ledger. Their generosity was a meticulously crafted prison. Their ledger is incomplete." Rostova stated, her voice echoing slightly in the quiet hallway. They entered the governor's office, a large room with a panoramic window showing the darkened city. On a table, a small wilted plant sat in a pot, a symbol of their slow decay. "We've argued with Archon Valerius for weeks." Yorick continued, sinking into his chair. "He is unfailingly polite and utterly immovable. He shows us the data, the charter we signed under duress. It's all there. We consented to proportional recompense for their aid." Rostova placed a data slate on his desk. "Governor, we are not here to argue their numbers. We are here to present our own. I need a full accounting of the societal and economic impact of their tithe. Every production line halted, every medical procedure delayed, every life support system rationed, every hour of education lost. We are going to calculate the cost of their gratitude." A flicker of something long lost appeared in Yoris's eyes. "Hope. You want to build a contra-ledger? A bill for damages." "Precisely." Rostova confirmed. The inter-system accord doesn't just demand proportionality in the aid provided. It demands it in the collection of the debt. They are causing systemic harm. They are violating the principle of societal continuity. We will prove that their method of collection is in itself an act of aggression. A law is only as strong as the will to enforce it. For the next 2 days, the Reckoning's legal team worked with Sanctuary's administration. Data flowed from the planet to the ship, a torrent of grim statistics. Factories operating at 15% capacity. Water rationing in residential districts. A 400% increase in respiratory illnesses in sectors with intermittent atmospheric scrubbers. Magister processed it all, its holographic form flickering in the Reckoning's strategy room as it built the case. The AI's voice was calm, analytical, yet Rostova could detect a new undercurrent. "Commander, the pattern is clear. The Kith are not simply collecting a debt. Their withdrawal of resources is strategically targeted to maximize dependency and prevent societal recovery. They are creating a perpetual crisis to justify their perpetual presence. They are farming them." Aris Thorne growled from his station, watching the data streams. "It's a harvest of human labor and resources." Rostova stood before the main holodisplay, where 2 ledgers were now forming side by side. On the left was the Kith's immaculate accounting of their aid. On the right was Magister's growing tally of the consequences, a ledger of pain written in lost productivity, failing health, and extinguished hope. "The public inquiry is in 1 standard day," Rostova announced. "Archon Valerius thinks he will be presenting a simple case of debt collection. He expects us to haggle over percentages and interest rates." She looked at her team, her eyes hard as diamonds. He is about to discover that this court is not a marketplace. It is a place of reckoning. The collar is not gratitude. It is a leash. Another vignette played on the local Sanctuary network, reaching the Reckoning on a delay. A young teacher was holding a class in a dimly lit room, using a battery-powered slate. And that she said to the dozen children huddled together is how a star is born. From pressure and heat and the coming together of elements. A small boy raised his hand. "Is that why it's so cold in here? Are we going to become a star?" The teacher's smile was heartbreakingly gentle. "No, sweetie. We're humans. We make our own warmth." Rostova's fist clenched. That was the core of it. The Kith sought to extinguish that warmth, that resilience, that simple human spark. Their legal doctrine was an offense, not just against the law, but against the very nature of a thriving people. The day of the inquiry arrived. It was not held in a physical courtroom, but in a secured, system-wide broadcast corridor of law. Rostova, flanked by Thorne, and a legal specialist, sat at a simple desk on the bridge of the reckoning. Opposite them, projected in perfect holographic clarity, was Archon Valerius, looking serene and confident from his own gilded bridge. A quorum of witnesses representatives from other independent systems, and a neutral adjudicator from the Accord, appeared as smaller floating images. The adjudicator, a being of pure energy known as a Xylan, began the proceedings. Its voice was a series of resonant chimes. This inquiry is convened to assess the claim of the Kith Regency upon the human colony of Sanctuary. Archon Valerius, you may present your case. Valerius inclined his head. Adjudicator representatives, our case is simple. We encountered a fledgling colony and catastrophic system failure. We provided advanced technology and expertise, saving 2 million lives and preserving a world. In return, we ask only for recompense, as codified in the charter, signed by their governor. He gestured, and the Kith ledger appeared between them, a shimmering, elegant pillar of data. The numbers are clear. The debt is substantial. Our collection is merely the logical execution of our agreement. A debt of life cannot be paid with a life of servitude. The adjudicator turned its non-form to Rostova. Commander, your response. Rostova met Valerius's gaze across the void. Adjudicator, we do not dispute that the Kith provided aid. We do not dispute that compensation is warranted. What we dispute is the method. We dispute the very definition of their collection. She made a gesture, and Magister's ledger appeared beside the Kith's. It was not elegant. It was a raw, brutal accounting of suffering. The Kith ledger measures what they gave, Rostova stated, her voice ringing with clarity. Ours measures what they have taken. It details the systemic degradation of a society. It counts the cost of dimmed lights and cold homes. It records the price of shuttered hospitals and silenced schools. The accord is clear. Recompense cannot be extracted in a manner that creates a new ongoing crisis. Valerius's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. The discomfort of the colonists is regrettable, but it is a direct consequence of the debt they incurred. They must learn fiscal responsibility. We are teaching them the value of our gift. You are not teaching Rostova, shot back, her voice like ice. You are punishing. You punish them for needing help. You punish them for being vulnerable. This fleet, this human tradition, teaches by numbers and remembers by ledgers, never by collars. A powerful truth spoken aloud can bend the arc of history. She looked directly at the quorum of witnesses. The Kith doctrine of the gratitude collar is not a system of debt collection. It is a framework for perpetual subjugation. It creates a cycle where the debtor can never recover, thus ensuring the creditor's influence forever. It is colonialism by accounting. The Xylan adjudicator chimed a thoughtful, probing sound. Archon Valerius, Commander Rostova presents a serious charge. She claims your methods violate the principle of societal continuity. How do you respond? This was the moment Rostova had planned for. She had forced him to defend the indefensible in a public forum. Valerius, however, was prepared. He smiled, a predator's calm returning to his face. The commander omits a key detail, he said smoothly, and with a flick of his wrist, a new document materialized, a scan of the original Sanctuary Colonial Charter. He highlighted a clause deep within the legal text. Article 217, subsection B. In the event of existential threat, any signatory power providing aid is entitled to assume temporary administrative oversight to ensure the colony's long-term viability and the complete repayment of incurred obligations. The governor signed it. The charter predates their crisis. We are not merely creditors, adjudicator. By their own foundational laws, we are their legal guardians. The air went out of the room. A legal checkmate. They hadn't just been saved by the Kith. They had, in a moment of ancient, unthinking bureaucracy, given them the keys to the kingdom. The fine print is the sharpest blade. Rostova felt a surge of cold fury. They had walked right into a perfectly laid trap. The charter was valid. Yorick had confirmed the signature. The Kith hadn't just been opportunistic. They had been waiting. This was not a random encounter. It was a planned conquest. For a moment, silence reigned in the corridor of law. The witness quorum shifted uncomfortably. The adjudicator's light seemed to dim. Valerius looked at Rostova, his eyes gleaming with triumph. He had not only justified his actions, he had legalized them under the colony's own authority. Then, Magister's voice spoke not into the public channel, but directly into Rostova's mind, through her neural link. Commander, the Archon is correct about the clause. However, his right to invoke it is predicated on one thing, that the Kith are the legitimate signatory power to whom the clause applies. I have been running a deep analysis of the Charter's provenance. Rostova kept her face a perfect mask of composure, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. Go on. Magister, she subvocalized. The Charter was co-signed by the original Exploration Consortium that funded the Sanctuary Colony. The Kith were not part of that consortium. They purchased the debt and the charter rights from the original signatory, the Xylos Corporation, 3 years ago. They bought the contract. A new path opened in Rostova's mind, a right razor-thin walkway over a canyon. They bought the right to be their saviors. Precisely, Commander. And according to Accord commercial law, when a debt contract is sold, the new owner inherits the rights, but also all of the attached responsibilities and limitations. The Archon has presented his rights. He has not mentioned his responsibilities. A slave to the letter of the law is blind to its spirit. Rostova took a slow, steadying breath. The tide was turning. Adjudicator, she said, her voice cutting through the silence. The Archon has presented a compelling piece of evidence. However, he has only presented half of it. She looked directly at Valerius, a cold fire in her eyes. Archon, you claim your rights under this charter. Let us now discuss your obligations. When the Kith Regency purchased this charter from the Xylos Corporation, you also purchased its liabilities. Let's examine Article 218, the fiduciary duty of the Guardian, with a command from Rostova. Magister highlighted a new section of the charter. The text glowed for all to see. It states Rostova read her voice ringing with authority that any acting administrative guardian has a sworn fiduciary duty to act in the colony's best interest, to promote its growth, and to achieve solvency and independence with all due speed. It explicitly forbids any action that would create protracted dependency or economic indenture. She swept her gaze across the inquiry. The Kith's actions are in direct violation of their sworn duty under the very charter they hold up as their shield. Their gratitude collar is not an act of guardianship. It is an act of profound bad faith. They are not guardians. They are parasites. Checkmate is not a word in our vocabulary. Archon Valerius's serene composure finally fractured. A flicker of genuine shock crossed his features before being suppressed. He had built his entire case on one clause, assuming no one would dig deeper into the contract law that bound its transfer. He had overplayed his hand. The interpretation is debatable, Valerius stammered, his smooth voice losing its oily charm. There is nothing to debate, Rostova pressed, relentless. Your own ledgers, which you presented with such pride, are a perfect record of your violation. They are a self-confessed journal of your failure to act as a responsible guardian. Every watt of power you've siphoned beyond what is needed for proportional repayment is a breach of contract. The Xylan adjudicator's chimes took on a sharp, decisive tone. Commander Rostova's point is valid. The Kith Regency's claim to administrative oversight is conditional upon its fiduciary responsibilities. The evidence of systemic harm presented in the human-generated ledger suggests a potential breach of these duties. This was the first crack in the Kith's legal armor. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was a critical turning point. The inquiry was no longer about a simple debt. It was about a criminal abuse of power. The tenor of the entire proceeding had shifted. Justice is not given. It is built, clause by clause. This inquiry will now enter a period of recess, the adjudicator declared. The Kith Regency will prepare a defense against the charge of fiduciary breach. The human delegation will refine its contra-ledger. We will reconvene in 3 cycles. The transmission ended the images of the adjudicator and witnesses vanishing, leaving Rostova facing only the lingering, furious hologram of Archon Valerius. A clever trick, Commander, the Kith hissed, digging through obscure commercial bylaws. But it changes nothing. The debt remains. The power is still ours to claim. The debt is now in question, Archon Rostova replied calmly. And as for the power, we will see. She cut the channel, leaving the bridge in a profound, ringing silence. Eris Thorn let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for an hour. By the stars, Eva, you turned his own weapon against him. Magister did she corrected, nodding toward the AI's glowing form. He found the seam. But this is just the first step. Valerius is cornered. He will become more desperate, more dangerous. Another civilian vignette surfaced from the colony. It showed Governor Jorik addressing the people of Promise Harbor from the steps of the administration building. His voice, though still weary, carried a new steel. We have an advocate, he told the assembled crowd. The UNS reckoning has shown them the truth of our suffering. They call it a gratitude collar. We call it by its true name, theft. We will not be silent anymore. A ragged cheer went up from the small crowd. A sound of hope rekindled in the manufactured twilight. Rostova watched the scene, a grim satisfaction settling over her. They had given these people a voice. Now they had to give them justice. Magister, she said, turning to the AI. Valerius is in breach, under the accord that gives us grounds for intervention. He is illegally siphoning resources. I want a plan. I want to turn his own system back on him. I want to present him with a bill so absolute, so undeniable, that it breaks his entire doctrine. The ledger is a mirror, and it is time they saw their own reflection. Magister's form shimmered. I believe I have a solution, Commander. It is a legal maneuver known as a mirror account. It is rarely used, highly aggressive, but in this case entirely justifiable. We will not just block his energy drain. We will seize it. Rostova's eyes narrowed. Explain. The Kith are using a network of energy transfer conduits to pull power from the colony's grid. They are unauthorized, a tool of their breach of contract. We can use the Reckoning's primary energy projectors, not as weapons, but as accounting tools. We can interface with their conduits, reverse the flow, and reclaim every joule of energy they have taken above a proportional rate of repayment, which I calculate to be 8.7% of their initial outlay. Eris looked stunned. You want to hack their entire power grid and drain them back? Not drain, Magister corrected. Reconcile. We will take back only what was unjustly taken, plus damages and penalties, as stipulated in the fiduciary breach clauses. We will credit it directly to the sanctuary colonial grid. We will do it live on an open channel with every transaction logged and time-stamped on a public ledger for the entire sector to witness. We will use their own obsession with accounting against them. Rostova allowed herself a small, cold smile. It was beautiful in its precision. It was a weapon made of mathematics. It was not an act of war, but an act of perfect mirrored justice. An invoice delivered at the speed of light. A debt paid under protest is a lesson learned. Make it happen, Magister Rostova commanded. Prepare the mirror account. Link our projectors to their conduits. And Ensign Vance prepare a system-wide broadcast. Title it, Restitution. She looked out at the Kith ship, a gilded cage hanging in the darkness. Archon Valerius wanted an audit. He is about to get one. The bridge of the reckoning became a whirlwind of focused activity. Officers and specialists moved with quiet purpose, their movements precise and economical. The ship was no longer a passive observer. It was coiling, preparing to strike a legal and logistical blow. Eris Thorne coordinated with tactical, ensuring the ship's defensive systems were at peak readiness. He did not expect Valerius to respond with force. It would shatter his carefully constructed legal facade. But one did not corner a predator without expecting it to bare its teeth. Ensign Vance worked at her console, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. She was building the framework for the public ledger, a transparent, real-time accounting of the coming operation. It would be accessible to anyone in the sector, a broadcast of pure, unassailable data. It was the modern equivalent of nailing a proclamation to the church door. Rostova stood with Magister, reviewing the final calculations. The AI's holographic form displayed complex energy flow diagrams, overlaid with legal citations from the Accord. The precision must be absolute, Magister, she stressed. We cannot take a single watt, more than what our contra-ledger justifies. The legality of this action rests on its perfect accuracy. We must be seen not as aggressors, but as restorers of balance. You cannot argue with the sum of your own actions. The mirror account is calibrated to the micro-joule commander. The AI assured her. It is linked directly to our verified log of damages. When the account is balanced, when the energy equivalent of lost productivity, medical costs, and infrastructure decay has been returned, the transfer will cease automatically. The system is self-limiting and fully compliant with Article 7 of the Justified Restitution Protocols. Rostova nodded. And the Archon, he will detect the interface with his conduits, but his own system protocols will be his undoing. His network is designed to maximize energy transfer efficiency. It will not be able to differentiate between a giving and a taking command without a full system reboot, which would take time. By then, the restitution will be complete. Magister paused. He built a perfect siphon. We are simply turning it around. The commander walked to the center of the bridge, her boots echoing softly on the deck plating. The weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. This was a move that would create a new precedent in interstellar law, an act of financial warfare waged not for profit, but for justice. It would be studied, debated, and cited for decades. A precedent is a door. Once opened, it can be used by others. She thought of the colonists on the planet below, of the teacher in the cold room, the mother with the sick child. This was for them. This was the promise of the United Nations of Soul, that humanity would carry not just its technology and its people to the stars, but its principles. That the law would be a shield for the weak, not a hammer for the strong. Lieutenant Thorne, are we secure? All stations report ready. Commander, shields are at nominal ready to reinforce. No hostile posture, but we are prepared. Ensign Vance is the public ledger ready to go live. Broadcasting framework is established, Commander. Standing by for your mark. Rostova took her place in the command chair. The soft leather groaned slightly, a familiar sound of authority. She looked at the image of the Kith ship on the main screen. It seemed to hang there smug and arrogant in its gilded shell. She smoothed the front of her uniform tunic. Magister. Ready. Commander. Open the broadcast. Let the entire sector watch. Her voice was quiet, yet it filled the bridge with an undeniable power. Execute the mirror account. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reckoning. On the main screen, a new window appeared, the public ledger designed by Vance. It was stark and simple. At the top, 2 headings, Debt Owed and Debt Reclaimed. The first column listed a staggering number, the total energy value of the damages calculated by Magister. The second column read 0. Then a new line of text appeared at the bottom, initiating restitution transfer. Authorization Yun's reckoning. Legal basis intersystem accord. Article 7 fiduciary breach. A thin, brilliant blue lance of light, visible only on energy scanners, shot from the reckoning and touched the Kith auditor. It was not a weapons beam. It was a data stream, an access key. A legal repossession order delivered at the speed of light. For a second, nothing happened. Then, the number in the debt reclaimed column began to climb. It started as a trickle, then became a flood. Megajoules, then gigajoules, then terajoules per second. The number was a blur, a frantic digital counter spinning upward. The reckoning wasn't firing a shot. It was making a withdrawal. Aboard the Kith ship, alarms would be screaming. Valerius would be staring in disbelief at his own power grids, watching as they were drained by his own perfectly efficient hardware. He was being robbed, but the thieves were leaving a meticulously detailed receipt. Transfer rate is stable and optimal. Magister reported its voice, a placid sea in the storm of data. The Kith ship is attempting to engage countermeasures. They are being bypassed. Their system architecture is too rigid. On the Sanctuary Colony network, confusion turned to dawning comprehension. Lights in the dark sectors of Promise Harbor began to flicker back on, not erratically, but with a steady growing strength. The atmospheric scrubbers in the mid-district whirred to life, their status indicators, turning from red to a healthy, vibrant green. A new vignette appeared. The woman who had worried for her son's respirator was standing at her window, watching the streetlights outside her apartment complex flare to full intensity. She touched the glass, her expression one of utter disbelief, before a slow, beautiful smile spread across her face. Tears streamed down her cheeks. They cannot tax the very light you bring. A priority hail came in from the Kith ship. It was Archon Valerius, his hologram sputtering into existence. The serene mask was gone, replaced by a contorted face of pure rage. What is the meaning of this piracy? He shrieked, his voice losing all its cultivated smoothness. You are attacking us! We are not attacking you, Archon. Rostova replied, her voice lethally calm. She gestured to the public ledger, which was now visible behind her. The reclaimed debt number climbing steadily. We are balancing the books. This is the cost of your stewardship, the price for your breach of fiduciary duty. We are collecting damages on behalf of the people of Sanctuary. This is illegal. The inquiry is in recess. The inquiry is about your legal claim. This is about your illegal actions, Rostova countered. Your continued siphoning of colonial resources, after the charge of fiduciary breach was leveled, constituted an ongoing criminal act. We are simply stopping it and reclaiming what was stolen. It is all logged. It is all legal. You of all people should appreciate the beauty of immaculate accounting. The law in the right hands is not a shield, but a sword. Valerius was speechless, sputtering with impotent fury. He was trapped. To fire on the reckoning would be to admit guilt and declare war, making him a pariah. To do nothing was to accept the humiliation and the reversal of his entire enterprise. He had built his power on the unassailable logic of numbers, and now he was being dismantled by it. The number in the debt reclaimed column ticked higher and higher. It was almost halfway to its target. The reckoning remained perfectly still, a silent, implacable instrument of justice. It wasn't a warship in that moment. It was a bank, and it was correcting a fatal error in the balance of the universe. Commander Eris Thorne reported, his voice tight with awe. "I'm getting reports from all over the colony. Power grids are at 100%. Water reclamation is fully operational. Medical facilities are reporting full power. They have their world back." Rostova allowed a single sharp nod. The first cost of victory had been paid by the people of Sanctuary, and it was now being refunded with interest. But she knew this was not the end. A cornered animal is at its most vicious. Valerius had lost control, and that made him unpredictable. The legal battle may have been won, but the confrontation was far from over. Her eyes remained fixed on the Kith ship, waiting for its response, knowing that the next move would not be on a ledger. The true test of justice is what happens when the numbers stop. The debt-reclaimed column on the public ledger continued its relentless climb. It was a silent declaration of war, fought with accounting. On the main view screen, Archon Valerius's face was a mask of disbelief, hardening into malevolent resolve. He had been outmaneuvered, his own cherished legalism turned into a weapon against him. His voice, when he finally found it, was low and venomous. "You have made a grave error, Commander Rostova. There are ledgers, and then there are consequences that cannot be tallied." The transmission snapped off. "He's cut the link," Ensign Vance reported, her voice steady despite the tension. "He's thinking," Rostova said, her eyes fixed on the Kith vessel. "He's looking for a move that isn't on the board." She turned to her tactical officer. "Eris, what's his ship doing?" "No change in posture," Thorne replied. His gaze locked on the tactical display. "Shields are up, but no weapon ports are open. He's still playing the part of the aggrieved party. But I'm reading a massive power surge building deep within his vessel. It's not consistent with propulsion or weapons. A law unbacked by power is merely a suggestion." Magister Rostova said, her voice sharp. "Analyze that power signature." "What is it?" The AI's form flickered. "The energy profile is unfamiliar." "Commander, it is highly concentrated, being routed to an emitter array directed at the planet. Specifically, at the Central Biosphere Regulation Network, the same one the Kith repaired." A cold dread settled in Rostova's stomach. This was the move off the board. This was the consequence that couldn't be tallied. "He's going after the life support." "It's a bluff," Thorne stated, though his tone lacked conviction. "He can't poison the well. It would invalidate his entire claim of being a guardian. The Accord would crucify him. He's not trying to poison it." Rostova countered, her mind racing. "He's reminding us who holds the antidote. He's creating a new crisis, one that our mirror account can't fix." A vignette from Sanctuary's surface showed a crowded public square. The restored lights of the city gleamed. People were looking up at the sky at the two ships hanging like celestial jewels. A cheer went up as the governor announced the full restoration of the power grid. Children laughed and splashed in a fountain that had been dry for months. The feeling was not just relief, it was liberation. They were celebrating a victory they did not yet fully understand was provisional. The highest peak always casts the longest shadow. The restitution transfer is 70% complete. Commander Magister reported calmly. Halt the transfer. Rostova ordered. Thorne spun around from his console. Commander, we can't stop now. We're so close. If we complete the transfer, we remove Valerius's stated grievance. She explained, her thinking becoming crystal clear. Right now, we are acting within the law, reclaiming a quantifiable theft. If we take it all, and he then creates a new biosphere, failure, his actions could be spun as a response to our aggression. He could claim he was acting to secure the asset. She stood up, pacing the command deck. He wants to change the narrative from a legal dispute to a hostage situation. We can't let him. We need to expose his intent before he can act. How, Aris asked. He won't admit to having a kill switch in the planet's life support. No, he won't. Rostova agreed. Which is why we have to find it for him. Her gaze fell upon the AI. Magister, you have the Kith's original repair logs and schematics for the biosphere regulators they installed. They were part of the evidence Valerius submitted. I want you to tear them apart. Find the back door. Find the poison pill. I want to know exactly what he's planning. A system's greatest strength is often its most exploitable weakness. Magister's holographic form bowed its head in acknowledgement. I will begin immediately. However, the Kith embed their system architecture with layers of legal code that function as encryption. It will be like unscrambling a 1,000-page contract written in a dead language. Then you'd better start reading, Rostova said. To Vance, she ordered reopen a channel to the Xylan adjudicator. Urgent procedural matter. Valerius has just made his next move. We're going to make ours. The corridor of law was reconvened, though this time it was more constrained. Only the adjudicator Rostova and a sputtering Valerius were present. The public ledger of the mirror account was frozen in the background, a silent testament to the 70% of justice that had been delivered. Adjudicator Rostova began, her tone formal and severe. We have detected a high-energy buildup from the Kith vessel directed at Sanctuary's primary biosphere controls. We have reason to believe Archon Valerius intends to manufacture a new ecological crisis to reassert his illegal claim of guardianship. Valerius scoffed, his composure partially restored. He was back in a legal arena, and he felt safe here. An outrageous and paranoid accusation. The energy buildup is a purely internal diagnostic cycle. Commander Rostova is attempting to distract from her own act of brazen piracy. The accusation is the ghost of the intention. The Xylan adjudicator chimed a sound like shifting glass. Archon Valerius, your ship is aimed at the planet's life support. Commander Rostova, your ship is actively seizing assets from his. The situation is escalating. Provide proof of your claim, Commander. Our proof is in the code of the technology. The Kith installed, Rostova stated. Our AI is analyzing it now. We request an injunction ordering the Kith vessel to stand down its energy systems and submit to an impartial technical inspection. I will not allow a human AI to tamper with our proprietary systems, Valerius shot back. This is nothing more than a prelude to industrial espionage. It was a stalemate, a classic, he said, she said. Rostova had no definitive proof yet, only a pattern of behavior and a menacing power signature. She was buying time for Magister to find the smoking gun. Every second they debated here was another second the AI had to decrypt the Kith's true design. The tension was a coiled spring, and Rostova knew Valerius was simply waiting for the right moment to let it fly. True power lies not in the threat, but in its inevitability. For 2 hours, the legal arguments went back and forth. Valerius was a master of procedural obstruction, burying every claim under a mountain of legalese. Rostova patiently methodically dismantled his arguments, keeping the focus on his threatening posture and his refusal to be transparent. On the bridge of the reckoning, Eris Thorn managed the ship. His knuckles were white. The standoff was taking a toll. "Commander," he sub-vocalized to Rostova. "He's still building power. He's reaching a critical threshold. Whatever he's planning, he's going to do it soon." Just as Rostova was about to respond, Magister's voice entered her mind calm and clear. "I have found it, Commander. It is not a simple kill switch. It is far more insidious." A wave of relief and cold fury washed over Rostova. "Show me." In her mind's eye, the AI projected the schematics. It was a cascade failure protocol buried deep within the biosphere regulators. A specific encrypted frequency broadcast from the Kith ship would cause the atmospheric moisture reclaimers to slowly, almost imperceptibly, go out of sync. It wouldn't be an instant catastrophe. It would be a slow, creeping drought beginning in the agricultural sectors. Food production would fail first. The air would thin over weeks. It was designed to be deniable, to look like a maintenance issue, a mechanical failure. It would create a crisis that only the Kith with their proprietary knowledge could fix. It was the ultimate enforcement clause. A collar forged in silence is the heaviest of all. He would not be killing them directly, Magister explained. He would be making it impossible for them to live without him. He is the shepherd who lames one of his sheep, to remind the flock who holds the healing staff. Adjudicator Rostova said, her voice cutting through Valerius's latest tirade. "We have our proof." She looked directly at the Archon, her eyes devoid of any emotion but certainty. "Archon Valerius, I ask you one final time to stand down your systems. If you do not, we will be forced to take protective action." Valerius laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Your threats are meaningless, Commander. You have no proof, only speculation. You will not fire on us. It is not in your nature. You are bound by rules I am not. It was the critical mistake, the arrogance, the open admission of his own bad faith." Rostova gave a nearly imperceptible nod to her crew. "You are correct, Archon," she said quietly. "We will not fire on you. We will, however, defend the people of Sanctuary from your attack." And with that, she gave the mental command, not to fire, but to shield. The reckoning moved, not with the ponderous grace of a capital ship, but with the swift, shocking precision of a surgeon's blade. Its thrusters flared, and the 3-kilometer vessel slid sideways, positioning itself directly between the Kith ship and the planet's sanctuary. It was a physical, undeniable barrier, an act of interposition. A shield can be a statement louder than a cannon. Simultaneously, the ship's shield emitters flared to life, but they did not wrap the reckoning. Instead, they projected a wide, flat plane of energy, a mirror shield facing the Kith ship. It was a defensive posture, but it was also a challenge. Valerius was caught off guard. His planned broadcast, the frequency that would trigger the slow decay of the colony, would now hit the reckoning's shields first. He could not execute his plan without first firing on a United Nations vessel. The subtext was gone. The deniability was gone. Rostova had forced his hand into the open. "This is an act of aggression." Valerius roared, his composure finally shattering completely. "This is a quarantine," Rostova corrected him, her voice broadcast across the system. "You are a vessel carrying a weapon of mass disruption aimed at a civilian population. We are enforcing a cordon sanitaire until inspectors can confirm you are no longer a threat." She had used his own methods, legal jargon, procedural maneuvers to box him in. She had not attacked him, but had simply made it impossible for him to attack others. The sheer audacity of the move left the adjudicator momentarily silent. You cannot hide your fist when your target stands behind a mirror. Commander Thorne set his voice low. He's doing it. He's firing the emitter. On the tactical display, a beam of concentrated energy lanced out from the Kith auditor. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It carried no kinetic or thermal payload. It was a stream of coded data the kill frequency Magister had identified. It struck the Reckoning's mirror shield and splashed across its surface in a silent storm of light. Shields are holding at 100%, Thorne reported. The frequency is being completely reflected. But where is it being reflected? To Rostova looked at Magister. A slow, cold understanding dawned on her. The AI had not just advised a simple shield. The name Mirror Shield was literal. Magister, she asked. The AI's voice was utterly serene. The reflection angle is by necessity precisely 180 degrees, Commander. The signal is being returned to its source at nearly full strength. On the bridge of the Kith ship, Archon Valerius watched in horror as his own weapon, his carefully crafted poison pill, was bounced directly back at his own vessel. His ship used the same life support and resource reclamation technologies that he had installed on Sanctuary. He had just aimed his gun, pulled the trigger, and watched the bullet ricochet off a mirror and fly straight back at his own head. A law is a mirror. It reflects what is put before it. Alarms blared across the Kith vessel, audible even over their open comms, before Valerius frantically cut the feed. The power signature from his emitter died instantly. He had shut it down, but the damage was done. The signal had been sent. It had been received by his own ship's systems. The Cascade Failure Protocol had been initiated on himself. Adjudicator Rostova said into the profound silence, "The hostile action has been neutralized. I believe we now have incontrovertible proof of the Archon's intentions. The transmission logs from our shields are being forwarded to you now." The Xylan's chimes were sharp, decisive, and filled with a cold fury. "The evidence is received and acknowledged. Archon Valerius of the Kith Regency, your actions constitute a direct violation of the Accord's articles on civilian protection, technological warfare, and fiduciary responsibility. You have in this inquiry's full view committed an act of unprovoked aggression. The recess is over. The final legal set piece was not a debate. It was a sentencing. The witness quorum was recalled. The data was presented, the schematics of the hidden protocol, the logs of the energy beam, the final damning transmission captured by the Reckoning's shield. Valerius stood silent, his face a ruin. He had no more arguments, no more clauses to hide behind. He had been so confident in his intellectual and legal superiority that he had never conceived of a strategy built on such perfect, elegant simplicity. He had been beaten not by superior firepower, but by superior principles. The deepest traps are the ones we set for ourselves. The Xylan adjudicator delivered its verdict. Its resonant tones were the death knell for the gratitude collar doctrine. The claim of the Kith Regency upon the colony of Sanctuary is nullified. All debts are voided. All installed technologies are hereby declared forfeit, and their control is ceded to the people of Sanctuary. The proprietary source code for the biosphere regulators is to be turned over immediately. This was the first cost of Valerius's defeat. He lost the prize. Furthermore, the adjudicator continued the Kith Regency is found guilty of predatory expansionism through legal manipulation. As a consequence, their trading charter within this sector is suspended indefinitely. They are barred from purchasing or enforcing colonial debt contracts on any developing world. This was the second cost, a blow to their entire economic model. Finally, Archon Valerius, for your direct role in this attempted atrocity, you are stripped of your title and will be remanded into the custody of the Accord. Your ship's biosphere systems have begun a process of slow decay of your own design. You will remain aboard your vessel, a guest in a prison of your own making, until we can dispatch a team to reverse the damage. You will have time to contemplate the consequences of the gratitude you demand from others. The debt is now paid, in the same coin. The verdict was absolute. The corridor of law dissolved, leaving only the bridge of the reckoning. The crew was silent, letting the magnitude of the victory sink in. They had not just saved a colony. They had broken a system of predation. They had established a new precedent. Rostova walked over to the main view screen. The Kith ship looked like a tarnished jewel adrift and powerless. The mirror account ledger still hung in the air, its debt reclaimed column frozen at 70%. "Magister," she said softly. "Complete the transfer," Commander Aris asked, surprised. "The debt is voided." "The debt is voided," Rostova agreed. "This is not a debt collection. This is restitution. The people of Sanctuary paid a price for their suffering. We will see that price returned in full. Balance the ledger." The blue beam lanced out again, and the number began to climb once more, ticking up to the final precise jewel. It was an act of punctuation, a final declarative statement that accounts would be settled, that justice was not about percentages, but about making things whole. A just accounting leaves no remainder. The cost of their victory was felt quietly. 2 of Rostova's legal team were burned out the marathon sessions against Valerius, having taken a severe mental toll. The reckoning itself had strained its projectors and shield emitters to their limits, requiring a month of repairs. And Rostova knew she had made a powerful enemy, not just of Valerius, but of the entire Kith Regency. They would not forget this humiliation. The victory was earned, and it would have echoes. Days later, as the reckoning prepared to leave the Kepler 186 system, a final message came from Governor Jorik. It was a simple video file. It showed the teacher from the vignette, her classroom now bright and warm. The children were drawing on their slates. The teacher looked at the camera. "Tell Commander Rostova," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "that my students asked what the word reckoning means. I told them it's what happens when the math is finally made right." Rostova watched the message alone in her ready room. On a public display nearby, the system-wide legal ledger blinked with a new permanent entry. Precedent lock. 7 Delta, the Gratitude Collar Doctrine, is hereby declared a crime of indenture. All related charters are subject to review. Privileges rescinded. The mirror arrays on the Reckoning's hull, which had shone with such brilliant defensive light, were now cooling their iridescent surfaces, dimming to a quiescent gray. She looked out at the stars, at the endless expanse, where so many other fledgling colonies were struggling to survive. The law was not a passive thing, a dusty book on a shelf. It was an active tool, a shield to be raised, a mirror to be aimed. It required will and courage, and the simple, unwavering belief that a debt of life should be repaid with a chance at a better life, not a lifetime of servitude. This is how we teach. This is how we count. We do not forgive the debt. We return it.